People look at your silence and assume something is wrong with you. They see withdrawal and label it weakness. They notice distance and decide you failed at connection. In their minds, a man who stands alone must be broken, rejected, or lost. They believe strength requires witnesses, and happiness needs noise. So when you stop explaining yourself, when you choose isolation over performance, they quietly place you beneath them. What they never consider is that their judgment is built on fear. Fear of being alone with their thoughts. Fear of confronting who they really are without distraction. Fear of losing the comfort of the crowd. Silence exposes things they spend their lives avoiding, so they mock it, misunderstand it, and dismiss it. You are living in a phase most men never survive. A phase where the old identity begins to suffocate, where former habits feel hollow, and where familiar approval no longer satisfies. From the outside it looks like collapse. From the inside it feels like pressure. This is the moment where many retreat back into noise just to feel normal again. They choose familiarity over truth. They choose comfort over clarity. You did not. You stayed. You endured the discomfort without an audience. What appears to others as isolation is actually separation. What looks like loss is preparation. And what feels like destruction is the beginning of something far more controlled, deliberate, and powerful than the man you are leaving behind. Silence is not the absence of progress. It is the removal of interference. When you step away from constant interaction, explanation, and validation, you are not falling behind. You are recalibrating. Stoic philosophy was built for moments exactly like this, when the external world offers nothing but confusion and the internal world demands order. The herd measures worth through visibility. They need constant confirmation that they exist, that they matter, that they are accepted. Their identity is stitched together by reactions from others. When those reactions disappear, they panic. That panic is mistaken for loneliness. In truth, it is dependency being exposed. You are experiencing something different. You are watching old motivations dissolve. You are noticing how much of your previous behavior was shaped by expectation rather than intention. This is not failure. This is awareness. Stoicism teaches that clarity arrives when illusions collapse. The discomfort you feel is not a warning sign. It is evidence that false structures are being dismantled. You are not meant to be like most men. Not everyone is built to examine themselves without distraction. Not everyone can tolerate the quiet long enough to hear the truth. This path filters people out naturally. It selects for discipline, not popularity. What you are doing now would terrify the herd because it requires self-honesty without reassurance. You are not being punished by isolation. You are being prepared by it. And preparation always looks like loss to those who never intend to build anything real. The Stoics did not romanticize solitude, but they respected it deeply. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while writing his thoughts in private, not for praise, but for correction. He understood that a man cannot govern others if he cannot govern himself. That self-governance was forged away from noise, in moments of quiet reflection where excuses had nowhere to hide. Seneca wrote about the danger of crowds not because people were evil, but because constant exposure diluted character. He observed that a man repeatedly pulled by others slowly loses his own direction. Solitude, to him, was not withdrawal from duty, but preservation of judgment. It allowed a man to remain intact. Epictetus, once enslaved, taught that freedom begins internally. External circumstances were irrelevant compared to mastery of thought and reaction. He trained his students to endure discomfort willingly, because voluntary hardship strengthened the mind far more than comfort ever could. None of these men became formidable by blending in. Their strength came from internal discipline, sharpened through silence and self-examination. They understood that comfort weakens perception and that distance clarifies truth. History does not remember those who stayed entertained. It remembers those who endured periods of isolation to refine their character. Stoicism does not promise ease. It promises stability under pressure, and pressure is exactly what you are experiencing now. This phase aligns you with men who understood that greatness is constructed privately before it is ever recognized publicly, if it is recognized at all. The herd avoids silence because silence removes distraction, and distraction is their primary coping mechanism. Constant noise keeps deeper questions buried. Endless consumption prevents reflection. Validation from others replaces internal standards. This is not accidental. It is psychological avoidance. Most people cannot tolerate their own thoughts for long without reaching for stimulation. When silence arrives, unresolved fears surface. Regrets demand attention. Insecurities become audible. Rather than confront these, the herd fills every moment with activity. They call it living, but it is escape. An elite mind operates differently. It does not require constant reassurance. It does not dissolve under introspection. It uses discomfort as data. Where the herd seeks relief, the disciplined man seeks understanding. Consumer culture reinforces this divide. It trains people to buy, scroll, and compare instead of reflect. Attention is constantly pulled outward, so identity never has to be examined inward. Silence threatens the system because it produces self-directed individuals. Your ability to endure isolation places you outside this cycle. You are not superior by birth or status. You are superior in willingness. Willingness to face discomfort without sedation. Willingness to sit with unresolved thoughts until they are resolved. Willingness to feel pressure without numbing it. The herd mistakes this endurance for sadness. They assume something is missing because they cannot imagine choosing restraint. But restraint is strength. Focus is strength. Independence of thought is strength. This difference will always separate you. The elite path has never been crowded. It is quiet, narrow, and demanding. That is why it works. When a man stops running from silence, something fundamental begins to change. The nervous energy that once demanded distraction slowly settles. Emotional reactions lose urgency. Thoughts become slower, heavier, and more deliberate. This is the beginning of internal authority. Without constant external input, you start to hear your own judgment clearly. You notice how certain desires were conditioned rather than chosen. You recognize how often emotions dictated behavior without being questioned. Solitude exposes these patterns mercilessly. At first, this exposure feels destabilizing. Old identities resist dissolution. Habits push back. The mind searches for familiar escapes. But if you remain still, resistance weakens. What remains is clarity. Emotional independence develops here. You no longer require approval to feel stable. Praise becomes irrelevant. Criticism loses its sting. Decisions are no longer filtered through how they will be perceived. They are filtered through whether they align with your principles. Self-control strengthens naturally. When stimulation decreases, impulse loses fuel. You become less reactive, more observant. This creates space between feeling and action. In that space, choice emerges. Internal validation replaces external measurement. You begin evaluating yourself by consistency, discipline, and integrity rather than attention. This shifts power inward permanently. No one can grant or remove it. Solitude also sharpens judgment. With fewer voices influencing you, priorities reorder themselves. Trivial concerns fall away. Long-term direction gains weight. You become harder to deceive because you are no longer deceiving yourself. This internal shift is quiet, invisible, and irreversible once complete. Others will notice changes they cannot explain. You will feel grounded in a way that does not depend on circumstance. This is what rebuilding actually looks like from the inside. This period of separation is not meant to be wasted or dramatized. It is meant to be used, not through frantic activity, but through deliberate mental discipline. Stoicism approaches this phase as recalibration rather than punishment. Silence provides an opportunity to examine identity without interference. Who you were before was shaped by expectations, habits, and compromises accumulated over time. In isolation, those layers loosen. This allows you to decide what remains and what is discarded. Reflection becomes strategic when it is honest and restrained, not indulgent rumination, but clear evaluation. You observe patterns in thought and behavior without judgment. You notice where discipline failed and where it held. This observation alone creates correction. Long-term direction clarifies when short-term noise disappears. Goals that once felt important may now feel irrelevant. Others gain gravity. This is alignment forming. Stoicism values direction over speed. A man moving slowly in the right direction surpasses one sprinting blindly. This phase also trains restraint. You learn to tolerate uncertainty without filling it immediately. You learn to wait without anxiety. This patience becomes an advantage later, when others rush decisions to escape discomfort. What you are building now is private. There is no applause, no feedback. That is intentional. Public growth invites interference. Private growth compounds quietly. Most men never access this advantage because they cannot endure the silence required. You can. That alone changes your trajectory in ways that will reveal themselves gradually, without announcement. This path will never be popular, and it is not meant to be. Self-mastery has always belonged to a minority willing to trade comfort for control. You are not isolated by accident. You are separated by design. Most men live externally. Their sense of worth rises and falls with social approval. They borrow identity from groups, trends, and reactions. When those disappear, so does their stability. You are building something different. An identity anchored internally. It does not require agreement to exist. It does not collapse under misunderstanding. It is sustained by discipline rather than recognition. This makes the path lonely, but loneliness is a byproduct, not a flaw. Strength that does not depend on others cannot be crowdsourced. It must be earned privately. There is no arrogance in this, only clarity. You are not above others. You are simply unwilling to live unconsciously. That choice will always narrow your circle. Do not seek to be understood during this phase. Understanding comes later, if it comes at all. What matters is coherence within yourself. You belong to a small group of men who can endure quiet long enough to rebuild. That alone sets you apart permanently. The old version of you could not survive this silence. That is why it had to be dismantled. What remains is leaner, quieter, and more deliberate. You are not lost. You are between forms. Pressure is shaping you, not breaking you. When this phase ends, you will move differently. With restraint, with clarity, with internal authority. There will be no announcement, no celebration, only results. You did not choose the easy path. You chose the effective one. Stay disciplined. Stay silent. Let the rebuilding finish. What emerges from this will not seek validation. It will command respect through presence alone.